Okay, so this week on Warrior Surfer we're going to be looking at the top 10 classic games of all time. There's going to be some new ones in there and some old ones. So first up on my list is an all-time old favourite of mine from the PlayStation 1. As far as I'm aware, only ever released on the PlayStation 1 is a little game called Disruptor. Before even playing the game, I remember seeing it as a little kid with the front cover, with like this massive robot thing with a huge gun pointed at the cover. This is probably one of the first games that I ever played where a storyline was visible and you actually became interested and cared about what happened to the characters and wanted to know what happened at the end. This was also back in the day when the live motion video was starting to be used in games. Some people weren't a big fan of it. I do quite like it in games. I think it adds maybe a little extra to the game, especially the early days when graphics were touch and go at best with frame rates very skippy. It just added to the gameplay, I thought, and made it a better story. You play as a new recruit in an elite Lightstorm Corps, and they kind of, I guess they're a bit like the Marines from the Alien series, and they've got these things called psionics that they use as like a bit of, I guess, a bit of a magic power. The powers with these psionics that you get given, they become a bit of a necessity as you go through the game, especially if you play on the harder difficulties, because you find out that your weapons and the ammunition are kind of a bit sparse at some points, so you do have to use the psionics to get by some of the bigger bosses, if you like, in the game. Do keep in mind that when this was released, the original PlayStation controller was around, so there was none of this two thumbstick business going on. It was literally up, down, left, right on the D-pad, and then the four X, square, triangle, and zero, as I call it, or the circle. This makes the actual controls on the game for such an early title with a bit of the naff sort of joystick setup that they had at the time actually quite playable, and you find yourself getting quite used to the controls very quickly. So not hindered in any way by the controls that the PlayStation lacked at the time. Going to just look at the levels in general, the level design is absolutely wicked. You've got different levels where you've got like this lavary stuff at the bottom. If you fall, you die. You've got like a more of a metropolitan type futuristic level where you're like on top of buildings and skyscrapers, it feels like. One thing that not many people know was the actual first person game that the company called Insomniac Games did. They didn't actually do another one until much later on in the PlayStation 3 era, which was a game called Resistance. It's probably a bit sceptical now, but I really did not like Resistance. I thought it was a bit naff, a bit boring. I wasn't a big fan of Killzone, and it felt a bit like that. A lot of open space and just shooting things. Story was choppy at best, especially with some of the British accents and things. Me being British, of course, I found it a little bit offensive. But seriously, this game has so much to offer, and seems to be one that a lot of people tend to have missed on the PlayStation. Definitely one to look at. Next up, it's Star Wars Battlefront 2. The first one was wicked as well, but the second one seemed to have tweaked things a little bit more. You get to play as some of the major characters from the film a bit more, like Vader and a lot of the different Jedis. It was also Xbox Live if you had the Xbox version enabled, which made it absolutely wicked to play against people online. Later on, of course, we got all of this new ranking system that came with all of the COD games, but this was one of the first games that I played where it was really good online playability. The actual storyline takes place both on planets, in like a third-person view, and also in space, with the third-person view and you being able to jump into different starfighters. I haven't actually got any images of the starfighters being able to use them in battles on my video, but I'm sure if you look through the rest of YouTube you'll find a few more. But they're also wicked, as well as these battles you have on the planets. Controls are very much pick up and play. I actually played this game with my other half, and we both thoroughly enjoyed it. Completed the game all the way through. You can play the story pretty much all the way through. Either it's the goodies or the baddies. And they are different, the stories, they intertwine quite nicely. The actual sound in this game is really good as well. If you play it even in co-op mode, you get the surround sound effect if you have a 5.1 system. Of course, one of the major selling points is that you get to play as like Yoda and Darth Vader and you know, destroy whatever the mission is, or you know, save whoever, and that really does work well in the game. The graphics themselves are actually quite good for an original Xbox game, especially the battles that you have in space. They look quite vast. It doesn't feel like you're in a tight compacted area and only able to fly from one ship to the other, which is pretty much what you can do, but it doesn't feel like that too much. Some people don't know, but there was actually a third one in the pipeline. This was actually abandoned. I believe the studio just got disbanded due to money troubles, which is really annoying because I really would have liked to have played the third one. There are some videos floating around on YouTube of what they started to develop. Looked really cool and awesome. But hey ho, we got number 1 and number 2. Okay, so next up is Michael Jackson, The Experience. This is one of my own personal favourites because I am a bit of a Michael Jackson fan, for those who know me. The gameplay is like the main feature of the game. The fact you get to do MJ's moves, follow the steps, and it does have different levels, so anyone can pick up and play. The version you see here is actually the PlayStation 3 version, very similar to the Wii version as far as I know, except you do have the camera ability on the PlayStation 3. I never had a chance to play the Xbox 360 version. It seemed to put you, rather than having a video, it would put you in the game. I don't know how that actually worked and whether or not it affected any difference in gameplay towards the PlayStation 3 or Xbox version. But for me, I wasn't a big fan of the Kinect, a bit biased, but I went for the PS3 version, very happy with that. The music selection on it is absolutely awesome. You've got tracks such as Billie Jean, my personal favourite, Smooth Criminal. You've got even some of the ones you wouldn't necessarily associate with being on there, such as Keeping the Faith off the Dangerous album, but no, absolutely wicked. And when I say there are different levels of difficulty, they do have like an easy, medium and hard sort of level on each song, such as Thriller being a hard one to follow. It's very quick and you have to do the moves very precisely to get it bang on and get it perfect. Whereas others, such as more like Billie Jean, they're a bit more, there's maybe less moves, but you still have to get them pretty spot on to get it perfect. I was mainly talking there about the dancing aspect, but you can sing also on the game. I did actually buy some mics, also a bit of a fan of the Guitar Hero games, so I had the mics for that as well. But with singing on this game, very much a similar experience to the Guitar Hero. It doesn't really matter what you sung into the mic, it was just the fact of the pitch that it noticed. So literally I could sing something really silly into the mic, and as long as the pitch was correct, I'd nearly always get a perfect. Okay, next up will be Tenka, or Life Force Tenka as it's known. Now again, this is an original PlayStation title. I think it was later on released on the PC. I did pick up a PC copy in a budget supermarket for like £1, and when I did install it, I believe it was to Windows 95. I think at the time I had XP. I think it did run, but not correctly, as you would presume with any kind of Windows product. You still had the original, just the up and down D-pad with the PlayStation controller. I believe it might have been later that year or at the beginning of the following year where the thumbsticks came out on the joysticks, but the controls is one aspect on this game where it lacks quite a bit. Being able to actually home in on enemies is really frustrating. As you'll see on the video, I mean, certain enemies, you pick them up straight away when you keep them at a certain level, but if you have to move up or move down, it's a nightmare. But that is probably the only flaw I can think of in this game. The PC version obviously didn't suffer too much with that, the up and down being mainly on the mouse. My favourite selling point on the whole game has got to be the music. The music and the sound is absolutely wicked for a game of its ages now. It was in Dolby Surround sound when it got released. The actual tracks were like hard rocking techno-y tracks, which was right up my street at the time. Enemies in the game are they start off from like these little creatures floating around that you see on the video, to some really big badass guys. Some of them look even like a crab, go around, and they're absolutely huge in comparison to, you know, when you play the game, and are very difficult to kill. I do remember getting the one specific level on this game where you had like a time frame in order to do certain things in, and I remember the time frame being nowhere near enough, but great fun all the same. Did have issues where the joystick nearly made contact with the ground outside through the window, but other than that, very enjoyable. Okay, next up it's Need for Speed Most Wanted. I've always been quite a big Need for Speed fan anyway, the cars being the main issue in it. They seem to have a really good aspect of speed, which helps dramatically. I know some games seem to suffer with you not feeling like you're going very fast. Although it's say 100 on the meter, it really only feels and looks like you're doing about 30. But definitely with this one, especially when you kick the nitrous in, it feels like you're going, you know, 150 plus mile an hour, and that feels great. The version you see in here is actually the Xbox 360 version. By far the best version. I played it on the PlayStation 2. This was towards the later ends of its life, and it started to struggle a lot on, especially when it went to you using your nitrous speed, loads of cars on the screen. It just really was a bit choppy in that. The original Xbox version, I didn't really see any copies of that going at the time. I figured it was very similar to the PS3 version, over little aspects tweaked on it. The PC version I actually had first. That was actually quite good on there. I only had, but this was before the 360 controller could be used on the machine. It was actually quite playable just on a normal controller. But this is the Xbox 360 version, as I said, by far the best. The gameplay in the game's absolutely wicked, typical arcade action, with, as I said, the aspect of speed, the time limits that you get, different opponents you go up against, and the progression in difficulty seems to go up just right, really. There isn't really times where you find out that you're up against a really hard opponent and then a really easy one, which did happen in some of the earlier titles on the Need for Speed catalog. Absolutely love the police chases, one of my favourite parts of the game. This is when I first introduced it, really, with the availability of dropping in and out and having them just come after you in the middle of a race was absolutely great. and I figured that, like most people, after the race had finished, it would just be it. But they still keep chasing you, even though it's finished, and you still have to go on. A big plus on this game was the customisation, one of the best ever. As you go through the game, you obviously progress and unlock extra customisation options, better engines, better looks and styles for your car. Since this title, there has been a number of extra ones, such as Need for Speed, the Carbon. Wasn't a big fan of that. It had a couple of extra little things in it. It didn't have the police chases really, so really any aspect of that. Seemed to have stepped back a bit and gone back to just the original Need for Speed games, Need for Speed Underground games. Need for Speed Undercover is a predecessor of that title. I did actually quite like that as a newer, updated version. The races were very similar, and scenes were very similar to Most Wanted. But the newer Hot Pursuit, I really did not like that at all. That seemed to take pretty much most of the racing. Felt very not very open worldy, and you literally were stuck to just doing these races that they pre-set up for you. I didn't like any of that. And the music in the game is also very good. Mixture of like rap, rock, techno, dance music. Pretty much something there for everyone. And of course, if you've got the Xbox version, you can stick your own soundtrack on there as well. Next up is Unreal Tournament. This is actually Unreal Tournament 3. This was like the first real console version to be any good. I would have probably got it on the PC originally if I had enough of a machine that could handle it. I didn't want to spend all my pennies. But the original Xbox versions, like the Championship 1 and 2, they were good, pretty much Unreal Tournament 2003 and 2004, just without the numbers. But this is where it all comes together nicely. Graphically, absolutely stunning. I remember seeing the early videos of 2005 of the PlayStation 3 material, and this was the game I knew I was getting as soon as I saw it. I don't know if many people know as well, with this particular version on the PlayStation 3, you seem to have extra content available for free for download, whereas on the Xbox 360 version, I never saw any of the downloadable content at all. I actually played this one with my other half as well. You can play like a story campaign for it with 2 players. Absolutely wicked. The progression of difficulty isn't too bad as well. Literally anyone can pick up and play. You can set your levels, like anything from just like an amateur all the way up to godlike or unreal. The maps, some of them are absolutely huge, especially the warfare maps where you like have tanks and vehicles you're driving, connecting up these like node things in order to hold them. It's a bit like capture the flag, and then you win doing it that way. On this video you can just see like a deathmatch. This is one of my favourite levels to play a deathmatch in. It's not very big, but because it's not very big, if you have a lot of opponents on screen, it can be quite messy and you have to be on the lookout the whole time. You've got some classic weapons here as well, such as a rocket launcher, machine gun, but then you've got some newer, not necessarily a weapon, but you've got like these newer things where you can create like a square and slows down time in this square. That's absolutely wicked. I don't know how they managed to get that. Even on the online games it still works. Literally you run through it and it slows down time. Absolutely crazy. And one of my all-time favourite games, is something a bit more out of the box, has got to be the Tony Hawk's franchise. A lot of the newer Tony Hawk's have been absolutely naff. Sorry Tony, really didn't like them. Really did like first, second, third, fourth one was pretty good, and then they sort of changed the name. Follow up to that was also quite good. But then really when we went on to the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, it just all went to pieces. But hey, the actual version I've got here is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. I think this is the best combination of the new and the old material. You had, if anyone played the original Tony Hawk's on the PS1, I actually had it on the Dreamcast, and it was absolutely wicked. I had some great fun with that, especially the tagging on the multiplayer with my mates around their house. You've got all those abilities in this one, plus the new edition, newer graphics, better controls, just the combination absolutely perfect. Of course in this game music absolutely superb. You've got tracks there from like Red Hot Chili Peppers, you've got the classic Ace of Spades, everything's there. The levels are quite big in this game as well. The enhanced skater ability to like create a skater and edit your actual skateboard is the extra features are brilliant in this game. The version you're seeing here is actually the PlayStation 2 version of the game running on a PlayStation 3. Compatibility perfect on this, so I haven't really had any issues with it. Overall, I make a big plea to Tony Hawk's, please get your games back to how they used to be. But no, number 3, absolutely fantastic. Okay, so Skyrim. I don't even know where to start. The game is huge. There is so much in it, it's absolutely crazy. I'll just pick out some of the aspects because if you haven't played the game, where have you been? It's literally one of the best things to happen since sliced bread. You can see me here going through a level with my character. I've got a little character helping me kill other baddies as I'm going through. But one thing that straight away I loved the original. I absolutely loved the original Oblivion. Well, I'll say the original, the 360 version of Oblivion. Absolutely fantastic game. And I really didn't think that Skyrim would be as good. And then I played it. How wrong could I have been? But this was absolutely amazing. Just the graphics alone have all been tweaked. You can see so much in the graphics. I mean, on a lot of these shots I've got here, I try to really show how good the graphics are in the game. The story has dragons in it. Who doesn't like dragons? Everyone likes dragons. You get the ability to even marry in the game now. I haven't actually done that myself yet. I haven't worked that out. Like some of the other people, I've actually bought the huge bumper guide to how you do everything in Skyrim. But literally it is like the size of a Bible. It's huge. Character customization in this game is fantastic. Best ever that I've ever played anywhere. You know, just from the weapons you choose, upgrading them, to the clothes you wear, your own abilities, magical powers. There's so much you can do. There's so many options to pick. You can really create a character that is completely a creation that you've made. Absolutely love the battles. I've played it a number of different times now. In this way I'm playing it at the moment, I've decided not to go down the magic route and just be like more of a Conan Barbarian type character. But it's actually a female this time. Normally play as a bloke, but if I see if the story's any different. The magical powers that you get in the game, the original run through I did a bit, absolutely wicked. And you get these, you get like this voice thing that you get from the dragons, which makes you a dragonborn, and you can do things such as shout at dragons to bring them down to the ground, and throw like this shockwave out your mouth to knock characters away. Fantastic. No, I really mean it. If you've not played this before, go out, buy it now. Worth every penny. I paid top dollar for this, and definitely worth it. Okay, next up, Wipeout 2097. Back in the PlayStation days. I remember my dad bringing this one home. Absolutely amazing. Obviously, graphically today it doesn't look quite as impressive. This is actually running on the PlayStation 3 through the emulation ability on my PS3, but absolutely wicked gameplay. Amazing. The sense of speed definitely there. The music fantastic. Actually a big fan of things such as the Chemical Brothers. The Prodigy are on there. Brilliant. Also got a Sega Saturn. I played the Saturn version a tiny bit. Not actually a big fan of that. The Saturn controller was quite naff. Other than that, I guess the game, it ran reasonably well, but the PlayStation version has got it for both the ability with the controllers and the graphics. Just makes a really good package. You've got different levels, designs. I mean, the one I'm playing here is like more of an open worldy woodlands type area, but then you get into like the city, which is absolutely awesome. Back in the day, graphics stunning. Okay, and finally, the game I spent and wasted a lot of my youth on has got to be Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Out of all the Grand Theft Auto games I'm still yet to play, I know they're making a 5th one nowadays, this has got everything in it for me. You've got all of the abilities you had in the original Grand Theft Auto, even on the PlayStation or even the PC version, and then you've got the ability of it being 3D. Got the ability to nick cars, drive off down the road, run people over. You know, it's all there. Also, another biggie for me, the music in the game was brilliant. They seem to have really summed up the 80s perfectly. Vice City really feels like you're in that world. Missions are vast, they do vary massively. You've got things such as like a form of a street race in a derby, or you've got things just going out assassinating people on behalf of someone else. But the main story actually revolves around like a drug cartel, and you losing the drugs and the money and having to chase down whoever has kind of put you in that position. The game does remind me a lot of the Scarface film. They actually did a Scarface game as well later on down the road, but this is definitely the best true representation of that kind of genre, like a gangster making his way to the top, and that's definitely what you do. The ability to pick up and play Vice City is quite good. The version you see here on screen is actually the Xbox 360 original version. I'm sorry, the Xbox original version running on an Xbox 360. It's a little bit choppy, emulating it of course, but you definitely get the feel for the game, and on the 360 controller the fact it's wireless as well definitely helps. One thing that did always was a bit of a sticking point was when you had certain weaponry, when you tried to, unless you were locking onto characters, if you needed to zoom in or anything, it was a bit naff trying to get it precise, but you work with it and you do get around it. As I said, that's my kind of lowdown of top 10 classic games of all time, definitely. If you haven't played any of them, I urge you to go out and just give it a try. 5-10 minutes, you'll be hooked. Most of those games that I've shown as well, they are not going to be expensive games to buy apart from the newer ones. So they're definitely value for money if nothing else. You'd not go far wrong by trying a lot of these games.